Welcome everybody to NetThing 2020. My name is Melody and I will be your MC for today. As your MC, my job for the day is to ensure the flow of the day goes well, do a bit of housekeeping, and to make this event engaging for everyone. Before we begin though, I just have 3 things to remind you. The first thing is that all sessions are recorded and live streamed on YouTube. The second thing is be mindful of our code of conduct, which is published on netthing.org.au, and also the link is shared in the Zoom chat. Last but not least, if you're feeling confident today, how about sharing a photo of you joining us from home or from your office on Twitter using the hashtag NetThing2020 by checking out the photo booth selfie provided by our sponsor GoDaddy Registry. The link is also in the Zoom chat. That's all from me. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce the chair of NetThing, Andrew Maurer, who will kick us off and introduce our opening speaker, Geoff Huston, as well. So over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Melody, and thank you all for joining us today. Melody, I think you're in charge of the PowerPoint slide, so maybe if you can sort of send us through as we are. So Melody has talked about logistics and code of conduct. Look, we're coming together from many different places today, and so I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture. We pay our respects to the elders past and present and emerging. I won't take much time this morning because we have a great program to get on to. I wanted to briefly describe what NetThing is and what we hope to achieve. I'll provide a quick run through of today's program, and then we'll hand over to Geoff Huston and his opening address, Australia and the Internet, a work in progress. It reminds me of a story about Nixon visiting China and Zhou Enlai being asked, what was the impact of the French Revolution? And Zhou Enlai said, it's too early to tell. The internet has been in Australia for quite some time. Geoff has been involved in building it from the first. But I think we always have a sense that there is something new to do and there is something next. If you can move us on to the next slide, please. Ooh, or even the one after that. So we have our webinar stream, we have the meeting room stream, which we'll call on, and the next slide, thanks. All right, where did we come from? 2006, the UN held the first Internet Governance Forum. There had been quite a run-up before that. The concept was that the internet is not in any one actor's hands. It's not controlled by government or the private sector or the technical community. It's actually everyone coming together makes the internet and makes it work. And we're all in our silos. It's very difficult to get people to talk with each other and have different perspectives brought to each other on what the future should look like. And so it's very important that those different views be brought together. Australia held its own national IGF meetings for a number of years, but they came to an end. And people in the internet community from all different parts said, actually, it's really valuable that we get together and we have this sort of conversation. Looking across the water to New Zealand, they moved on from the IGF concept to the NetHui. And the concept was they bring everyone with an interest in the future of the internet to join in the conversation where everyone has a say. And we found that pretty inspirational. So I have the list of the traditional breakdown of the multi-stakeholder community on this slide for those of you that aren't familiar with it. For those that have been involved in internet policy, it's a bit like when you get on a plane and the stewards and stewardesses run you through the air safety. There's a description of what's involved in the internet community, which we're steeped in. But basically, what we are hoping for, if we could go back to that, all things internet, all people interested in the internet. So the next slide, thanks, Melody. what we are hoping for is that everyone that cares about the internet can come and talk to each other. We want to set up a forum where you may hear things that you disagree with and you don't like, but they're being presented honestly as the perspective and the interests of someone else in the community. And you will come away more informed about what their thinking is. You don't have to agree. We're not coming to decisions, but what we are hoping for is a community that is activist, informed, and involved in decision making, that feels that they have a say in the future of the internet, and are doing so in from a base where they are respectful and knowledgeable of other points of view. So Melody, if you could move us on. Or not? Okay. Yes, so all things internet, all people interested in the internet. Today's program, moving on to the next slide, is going to be addressing the 5 major themes that we have identified as a way of breaking down the policy elements of the internet. So we have, a description of focus on policy, a focus on inclusion, on technology, security, and the future. These are the broad headlines that we think sort of provide interesting different points of access into looking at the multifaceted, rat's nest of technological, economic, social, all sorts of issues that are involved with the internet working in Australia. So as a quick run through of our program, we'll move on to Geoff's opening address, and then from there, we will at 9:30 have the growing role of digital platforms, which is building on the discussion that the ACCC, I guess, initiated in its recent review of digital platforms and its report, and the question of what governments should be doing. Should they be doing anything? What should they be doing better? We have a conversation starting at 11 o'clock on truth and trust, information, misinformation, disinformation, and that's being live hosted from UQ, and should be a very good discussion, I think. Then moving on from there, at 1 p.m, we have a discussion of internet infrastructure security, led by our panelist, Terry Sweetser, and at 2:30, Gaming Our Future, which is really looking at a whole range of emerging technologies and how people can be involved in the future of the internet. What some of those technologies like gamification and blockchain will mean for future development, and how people can be active in addressing those. And finally, we have a 3:45 session, Censorship and Expression Online, a discussion about how, well, sometimes with explicit decision, but often just the way the system works, some people's voices are promoted and others are silenced. And so a conversation about the role that the internet plays in that, and the role we all play in that. And we will close today at 5 o'clock. The sessions have been set up so that initially there'll be a panel discussion, there'll be a Q&A session, and in some cases we'll break out to a separate room for a more face-to-face discussion. Look, it's been a hard year for all of us, for obvious reasons. We started in smoke and fire and moved on to pandemic, and it's been really hard to get this together. We've had a group of volunteers that have done it, and a group of amazing sponsors. So I'd like to thank APNIC, who are first off the bat in terms of contributing money and who are organising all of our communications feeds today, and have supported the UQ being involved in NetThing today. Linux Australia was also an early contributor and very interested in our efforts to build an active multi-stakeholder community in Australia. Affiliates Australia have been involved in the steering committee for NetThing, and have sponsored it, and I would particularly like to express my appreciation to Greta Adamo from Affiliates Australia for having managed our blogs and email blasts. It's been excellent. Amazon were very supportive of NetThing last year, and they've continued that support this year, so thank you to Amazon. GoDaddy Registry have joined our committee and sponsored us, and you will see that they have provided fun Zoom backgrounds, including the one I'm using at the moment, a photo booth, and they are running a quiz tomorrow, but also running a really interesting workshop tomorrow, so I encourage you to attend that. And Outer have, again, been a sponsor, but they are running a workshop where they are talking about their future, their strategic planning going forward tomorrow. And so I would like to thank them and all of our sponsors for all the contributions they have made in terms of bringing this forward. It could not have been done without them. We are a small group of volunteers. We have no budget or organisation behind us beyond what we bring in our spare time. And it's the contribution of our sponsors that has enabled it to happen this year. And finally, I would like to thank the steering committee. So it's people contributing their energy, spare energy and spare time, of which it's been really difficult this year to get together. And we've moved from going from a fully physical event to one distributed across the country to a largely virtual event. And it's required, agility and activity from everyone involved. I'd like to particularly call out Sandra Davey, who chaired last year's NetThing and has continued to be a champion this year. Kelsey Nabin, who chaired one of our subcommittees, and Sarah Kirkby, who also has been highly instrumental in getting all this together. One of our committee members passed away this year, and we miss him still. I won't say his name, but yes, I'd like to take a moment just to think about him and say thanks to him for his contribution. And that is it from me. I'd like to thank you all for coming along. I hope you will take the opportunity to participate and to hear other people's views and to contribute your own. We want to be in a position where we are well informed and respectful of diverse opinions coming to this forum, and we can use that as a basis for informed and active participation in the internet community to go forward. Thank you all. And over to you, Geoff.
Oh, thank you for that. Let me share a screen. Look, thanks for having me here today. I should say, I suppose almost as an excuse, but certainly an opening, I'm not a descendant of the first peoples of this land. I'm not a member of a minority group. Might be obvious, but I'm not a woman, and I'm not a new voice, far from it. I'm not sure that it makes any sense to apologize because it's what I am, but I readily appreciate that some of you might be tired of hearing the same old stuff from me and folk just like me. So look, you want to hop away from the keyboard, get yourself a flatty or a cup of tea or whatever. Now is a really good time to do that. And I promise I won't be offended. I can't even tell who else is sharing this grey void with me. So, I won't be offended, truly. I'll be about 15 minutes or so, and then you can go and get back to fun stuff. The other thing I should say right off the front is this is me as an individual, nothing more. I'm not pretending to speak on behalf of my employer in any way. This is my voice. Good or bad, it's my voice. So what am I meant to talk about? I was briefed on this to say, I think the most useful thing you could do is to hear your thoughts on what are the big issues at the moment, where you see things heading. You'd be speaking on your areas from your perspective, not necessarily trying to channel some sort of universal internet zeitgeist. What I think. Oh dear. You might not like this. because there are uplifting talks. There are great talks that make you come out feeling, wow, got so much to do. And there are others. This is another. Because, you know, some of these burning issues, and I think more importantly, how we got here, are actually really important issues. And there's certainly technology has just gone mad in 30 years. We're talking massive systems that pummel terabits of data around the planet every second. We used to have huge computers that needed dedicated warehouses, needed cooling and heating systems, needed an army of worker bees 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just to keep them running. Now, gee, hasn't even got any buttons. Where have we gone? We've gone from clumsy tools like file transfer and Waze, if anyone remembers it, to Facebook and fake news. We've now gone from data to search, and we've gone way better than that. We've gone into analytics and new and wonderful ways of stalking. And I actually think all of this has gone sour on us. That realistically in 30 years, it's not very good. It's disillusion and it's distrust. Why? You know, we had a lot of really wonderful expectations in the late 80s. We thought computers and communication were going to do wonderful things. Where we've ended up is rigged elections, fake news, the destructions of livelihoods, the creation of an entirely new global economy based only on surveillance capitalism. Mate, what went so horribly wrong? I'm sure that looking at these causes as to why would make a really good talk. But there are two problems with such a line of thought. Firstly, I've only got a few minutes of your time. And secondly, to be perfectly frank, I don't know why it went so wrong anyway. So maybe I'm not the person to do that. But it's certainly true that the changes that we are living through are fundamental. We suspect they're badly exploitative, and that as individuals, as communities, as even nation states, we feel like we're being overwhelmed. This is truly a full-blown revolution. Now, how did this happen? I don't know, but we're trapped in one. So what should I say? What should I say right now about this? Well, I suppose the first lesson from the French one was, don't trust that Robespierre guy. He's going to kill us all. And secondly, Napoleon really was a genocidal maniac. All revolutions have an extraordinary cost. And this one's going to be no different. So, time for a warning. Time for a look out. Time for us to understand that these changes are so fundamental and so great that we really should worry about the degree of unease, of fear and resistance, the degree to which social capital and projections of social power are changing hands. It's easy to view things with suspicion and distrust and warn about how bad it's going to be. But it's all water off a duck's back. It's like the sky is falling. Nobody listens. The problem is that it really is broken, fundamentally broken. So what should I say? What's my message? Well, in this grey void that I find myself in, there's only one thing I can say. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I actually want to apologize for my small part in this mess we find ourselves in, because it all turned out so horrendously badly. And maybe we should have thought more about the risks at the time, even when they may have sounded so far-fetched. I'm like, we were so good at saying everyone should be able to play. The internet is for all. We never really thought about what we meant by that. Because when we said everyone should do it. What we never really thought about hard was, what the hell have we done to ourselves? Because I don't know about you, but I'm a shocking programmer. I'm really bad at my job, and I'm not the only one. I'm actually average. The world of programmers and code generators is actually a world of really, really shocking work. We build these massive edifices of mind-boggling complexity and then replicate millions of lines of code into billions and billions and billions of devices. Your car has 300 processors in it. God alone knows what's inside the Max 8 that Boeing built, because Boeing certainly don't. Or even in your fancy front doorbell. The KPIs for our industry are actually best described by this oh so fashionable agile process that seems to be wandering around the industry at the moment. What's agile, if you haven't heard about it? Well, that's the incentive to write even shittier code, even faster and more of it, because obviously that's what we need. No one knows how these systems work anymore. No one truly understands the dependencies anymore, if they ever did. And if you want a really good example, think left pad. The continual streams of upgrades that all of us are being subjected to when we have devices should give you ample evidence that all we're doing is bailing as fast as we can to stop the entire ship from sinking. This is not about making it better. This is just about putting some more fingers into some more holes, because otherwise we're all going to go under. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars in this country alone, trillions globally, on staffing all these shiny, bright cyber defense bodies. We're trying to show what a great job we're doing to defend ourselves, when the problem isn't the folk who are driving all those trucks through these gaping holes. The problem is that it was the people like me who produced insanely shitty code in the first place that made all these holes. And those cyber defense bodies aren't cleaning up the coding mess. They're just trying to clean up the repercussions. So we're just not up to the task, are we? And, you know, I don't know about anyone else, but you should be really, really worried. I'm still at the keyboard. I'm still pounding away down here. I'm still writing code. We've done an amazing job. We are really, really terrible at it. The internet is now busted. And to be perfectly frank, it's entirely unclear how we can fix it. We can't make it better. So again, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. So we've no desire to actually build truly secure systems. In the rush to digitize our world of services, we're taking extraordinary risks. I'm like, the term web security is the punchline to some demented sick joke, because the online world is held together by a level of naive trust that makes all other forms of human credulity look restrained and even cautious. When we thought about what better security might look like, the response that we got from our collective funders and resources was, we've neither the time nor the money. We're not going to do a better job. We believe that the consumer is so impatient about milliseconds that it matters way more than security. We cut corners and build fast, shitty code. Maybe we should have said no and walked away from the keyboard, but I didn't, and I'm sorry. We thought we were helping two people to communicate, because after all, you know, comms is what drives the human experience. We live to talk with each other. We are social animals. We actually knew that if you change the way we communicate, you change the nature of human society. We knew that, but we didn't take it to heart. None of us envisioned that perversion of our nobly motivated ambition into the sewerage of Twitter, the deluge of waste products from the Facebook factory. We only appreciate the role of content mediators when we eliminated them from the planet. It's not pretty. We only choose to listen to what we agree with these days. The internet's a gigantic, vanity-reinforcing, distorted TikTok selfie. And for my part in all this, I am sorry. So we built this new world so quickly, we outpaced everything else. There's no controls, no regulation, no competition. We're Nike, just do it. In the rush to be the first to unleash the next round of savage surveillance capitalism on an unsuspecting populace, We've bypassed all of our conventional social forms of care and restraint. 7 digital giants dominate our world. They dwarf nation states in their size. Their unstinting efforts to lobby politicians has turned the political process into a fatally corrupted, empty shell. We moved too quickly. No one else kept up. We wrote our own rules. From Uber to Google, the word was disruption. Destruction of the old world business environment wasn't the worst thing we did. No, we were far worse than that. We privatized our public communication space. We turned our culture and our public discourse into private property. We've privatized our intellectual agreements. Who owns antibiotics? Who owns my genome? Who owns my personal profile? We turned everything around us into a transaction. We destroyed our libraries and replaced them with search. We've replaced journalism with Twitter. Our world is no longer a union of public spaces, but a collection of private enclosures. I helped to build that, and I'm sorry. So I suppose an opening talk, assuming that anyone remembers it, and that's dubious because I don't remember any that I sat through, and I've sat through hundreds. It's meant to provide some helpful suggestions. It's offer some motivation, maybe even comfort that our voices can matter and we change the world for the better. But for my part, I actually feel I've already betrayed you 30 years ago. The glittering prizes that I said that this new technology was going to offer us were actually tawdry, corrupted, and debased. I didn't appreciate that. I thought technology would be a compelling force for good. I was wrong. I'm truly sorry. So maybe I've given up the right to offer suggestions. They're probably wrong anyway if they're coming from me. I don't have anything to sell and not much to motivate either you or me. But if you will indulge me, I have just one closing observation. The task before us isn't to make it better. It's too late for that. The task before us is a little bit more pragmatic or prosaic. We need to come to terms with what we've done. We need to understand our world realistically and try and understand what we can do about coming to terms with that before we move on. And for my part, I am sorry. Oh, and for those of you who've stepped out for the beverage of your choice, it's time to come back. Welcome back. Thank you.
Thank you, Geoff, for always kicking us off with a bang. With that, I do believe that resilience and rising to the challenge presented by Geoff is why we are here, essentially. By showing up, it shows that the people of Australia actually care about the internet and care about the impact that it has on our lives and in our organizations.